So we spoke about how to increase the consumption of TROPICAN extruded granules, such as by placing it in a night cage or by using foraging devices. There are other ways, though.
Obviously. Of course, my recommendation would be to put it in small quantities, a bit everywhere where the bird actually spends some activity time. Always in a night cage, but also present at all times in the day cage, and of course in your activity tree perhaps, or your activity center. Definitely TROPICAN is the favorite food to use when you're traveling, perhaps with a piece of fruit and with a piece of millet, but it's definitely more hygienic than traveling with a carrier and a transporter and having a whole bunch of seeds on the floor. We still see horror situations where people are transporting birds on seed beds. It's not something that we want to recommend. Birds should always be housed on a fresh bedding and should be offered TROPICAN only in dishes. Again, it's very important, and we're talking about adult birds here, but nonetheless, adult birds can always learn. And if we show them that we can eat the TROPICAN ourselves, and whether we're mimicking that or whether we're doing that for real, birds do learn quite fast by monitoring. And in the wild, birds will usually forage where other birds are foraging. And this ensures confidence that the food that they're eating is safe for them. So, you know, sitting beside our bird's cage and actually taking some of these granules, sticks, biscuits, and either eating them yourself and showing the bird that this is actually good food to eat, and of course allowing yourself to have vocal response to the food and this is good food, and allowing your pupils to dilate, and not sharing the food with your bird, because that's not something
really important point.
We don't recommend that with soft foods. We don't recommend that with table food. We don't recommend that with pellets as well. But showing to the bird that you can actually eat this and that this is good for you, your birds will definitely follow your example. And this can increase the likelihood that your bird will eat more of it. Now, of course, when we're trying to convert birds to a formulated diet in a clinic setup, then we would normally allow this bird to see a bird that's already eating pellets. That's what we use as a tool in our fledgling room as well, right? We always keep one of our top fledglings to educate our other birds. Right now we have, unfortunately, green-winged macaws, and we don't have our role model Amazons that are usually the ones that can educate our birds the fastest, especially for weaning. And this is more complicated for us right now in our nursery because macaws tend to take much longer to learn how to eat food and to wean properly. But and that means we're eating a lot more of our TROPICAN to show them for sure that this is a good food and this is one that is quite healthy for them to eat.
We also have to monitor our birds to make sure that they're eating enough of the extruded granules, right?
Absolutely, and this is why daily monitoring of the bird's cage and you know, having communication with the other caretakers in the home that are feeding the birds, ideally it's always more than one person taking care of a bird, will definitely increase your likelihood of making sure that you are confident of what your bird is actually eating. Now, of course, usually TROPICAN is easy to see if the birds are eating it because it will have a little bit of powder residue at the end. Because it's an extruded pellet, it won't have a lot of powder, but it still will have a little bit, and this is an indication that the birds are actually eating it. How much quantity they're actually eating can be reflected in the droppings, of course.
The droppings would be a different color if they're on exclusive
Absolutely. Because this formulation is completely natural, the droppings of a bird that eat only TROPICAN would be of a natural beige color, and usually well formed. If they're dry and skinny, the birds are usually not eating enough and they're not drinking enough. Now, very important is that we evaluate the quantity of TROPICAN eaten, but also the quantity of water being offered. And that's very important when the birds start to eat higher quantity of extruded pellets, is that they're actually drinking as well high quality water, and that they're drinking enough water, of course. Monitoring the droppings in the day cage can be a little bit more difficult than monitoring them in the night cage. Prior to us going to bed at night and to our birds sleeping, of course the last meal that they will have will be the extruded pellets, and the first meal that they will have in the morning will be the TROPICAN granules once again. So just prior to going to work, you know, usually an hour after the birds have awaken in the morning, we should have a pretty good idea of the healthy dropping that this bird will be producing. Now, everyone is alarmed when they start to analyze droppings because The morning dropping, the first dropping that the bird usually has after he has been sleeping, can be one of retention.
Okay.
And this one can be a little bit more loose. And this is not necessarily indicative of diarrhea or any health preoccupation. The one that you want to look at is after the bird has had his healthy breakfast. And this is why, once again, the importance of having 2 cages and having clear paper as a substrate, so that we can definitely change that or add another layer to it in the morning when we're in a hurry, just to make sure that we have a good impression of the bird's health before we go to work.